So as we mentioned, education unions meeting with the Basic Education Minister, Angie Motshekga, on Saturday in a bid to convince her that the phased reopening of schools should be postponed. They said despite her earlier announcement, the education system is simply not ready to do so in its current state. The minister was to brief the country a short while ago, but postponed the briefing to tomorrow morning. Executive Director of Naptosa, Basil Manuel, joins us now for more on this. A very good evening to you, Mr. Manuel. Thank you so much for speaking to us. To your understanding, are schools reopening tomorrow or not?
Well, this is what the postponement of the briefing has done. It has caused wholesale confusion, because what we were looking for is an emphatic voice that will give direction to all the schools in the country. And our meeting yesterday, we certainly left the meeting feeling that glow that we have managed to put it to the minister and the MECs who were present that, in fact, we all know that the system isn't ready. And it would be an injustice to simply just start opening schools. We, in fact, agreed that the schools that have received the PPEs, etc., the teachers will begin returning to those schools so that they can prepare for the learners to come in, so that they can be orientated. And this is what, in fact, we are saying must happen. We are not talking about a few dozen schools. We are talking about hundreds, thousands of schools that haven't received the necessary PPEs. So, and parents don't know whether schools have received this. So if they follow the directive that says the learners must go to school tomorrow, there is going to be confusion in the streets, and a lot of children are going to be turned away from school. And I want to latch on to that term confusion. Just a couple of days ago, you pointed out some of the legislation gazetted by the Department of Basic Education as sowing confusion on what exactly is going to happen in the reopening of schools, certain grades, the fact that it would have been put for a certain date, but really doesn't correspond with what is being communicated. Is this the sense that unions are getting, that there is no clear direction of what should happen with the reopening of schools? Are there different messages being communicated, different information that's coming out? Absolutely. If you simply just look at the directives from the Department of Labour, they lay down very clearly what any workplace must have. Now, school is no different for its teachers. The directives from the very Department of Education makes it very clear that no person is expected to be at school if the school doesn't have those minimum requirements. Now, having said that, by summarily announcing that schools must return without having checked that this is indeed so is tantamount to being reckless. And we are saying that thousands of schools don't have this. So what are we asking parents to do? You can't send your children to school if, in fact, those schools are not ready. We can't expect teachers to go in if the schools are not ready. And Naptosa is very clear. And we are not standing alone. We are standing with everybody else that is saying, if the schools are not ready, our teachers, our members cannot go in there, because it is patently against the law published by the very self-same minister, as well as the Minister of Labour. And we are saying neither can the children be there.
I want to talk about teachers and support staff. There are reports that some of the SMTs, school management teams that had gone to schools, some of those schools had to be shut down because of reports that there were infections that were reported. Could you please comment on this, confirm or deny it, and also speak about the delay? Remember, there was a date of the 18th on which SMTs were supposed to go back to schools. Has that happened for all of them? And what does it mean for tomorrow as well? Because I'd imagine that they, as you've also pointed out, would have gone there to set up. Schools would have been cleaned, etc., etc. But again, you say the protective equipment also has not arrived in certain schools. Some don't even have the resources to clean the schools.
Absolutely. Let's just start at the beginning. The hasty announcement of dates has been an embarrassment. And it is also embarrassing even now to have a date when we know that so much of the stuff has not arrived at schools. And I don't want to airbrush it. Some schools haven't even had the first delivery for their SMTs. And we can't expect workers to go onto the premises when they are not protected, whether they be support staff, whether they be the teachers, whether they be the frontline staff. It can't happen. And this is where the basic problem lies. And then tomorrow, we expect that if learners return, they must have masks and the like. And I will guarantee you that most of the schools don't have the quantity of masks required. So what is it that we are saying to our parents? Let's take a chance with your kids. It can't be that. And I am appealing for sanity to prevail.
So in your conversations with the department, did you discuss some of these things and the extent to which readiness is? I know when I spoke to you last week, you said 80% of the schools are not ready. That was contrary to what the minister announced. Did you manage to drive that message home? Do you think successfully? And also talk about testing of teachers and support staff. Is there a plan on when and how that should be done, including the curriculum? Do teachers know what curriculum they're going back to teach?
Let me deal with all of them. First of all, about those schools where there have been infections. Yes, a couple of them have been reported and verified. The exact number I can't tell you, some in the Western Cape, some in the Eastern Cape, and even in Gauteng. Insofar as what we drove home yesterday, we showed the minister and we tried to illustrate that, yes, at one point our intelligence was saying 80%. And of course, things had improved because from the 18th to now, there's been a great improvement. But we're still nowhere near saying that everything is hunky-dory, everybody can go back. And we were left with the impression that that was clearly understood and that it would not be in the interest of the system to open and then find that there would be a lot of confusion out there. So we left the meeting in the hope that, in fact, an announcement will be imminent that is going to confirm this. Our recent survey of Friday has indicated that we have a variation of between 50 and 60% of schools that are ready. That means 40% of them are not at best. And that is a problem as well. And if they are not ready, what do? We can't simply send our children into a place like that.
And that takes us back to our original question. Teachers, learners, and parents are sitting here right now thinking, what do I do tomorrow? Do you arrange transportation for your children? If your teacher, do you go back to school tomorrow, even if the learners don't? What would you advise them to do? And what is your sense of what the answer should be?
Let's err on the side of caution. Simply because if we don't know, let us rather be cautious. I'm expecting that schools will be sending out messages to their children. And I'm saying to the many, many principals who are very confused at this moment that they have to communicate with parents. But then we also know the reality that not every school is able to do that. And where parents are unsure, err on the side of caution. And we know that this year has thrown everybody into a dizzy spin. But there has been an announcement of opening. We are saying that opening can't happen at all costs simply because there hasn't been a delivery by the very department. As for our teachers, we are emphatic. We are saying to them, if your school is ready, you go in to start preparing the school for the learners. But nobody goes to a school that has not been prepared and is not ready to accept anybody onto the premises without the necessary protective gear.
Basil Manuel, thank you very much. She is the Executive Director of Naptosa. Thrown a curveball, thrown into a tailspin. I'm sure this pretty much explains or at least describes what many parents, teachers and learners are feeling at the moment. We continue to try the Basic Education Department, the spokesperson, to get some clarity on the postponement of the press briefing that was scheduled at 6 p.m. this evening, which is now being postponed to tomorrow at 11 a.m. But most importantly, what does this mean for parents and learners?